relying on to make sure that this information is relayed to them properly. And if I'm not relaying it properly, I'm not saying that something horrible could happen, but maybe they misunderstood something, and maybe they from there on out they do their job wrong or something like that. It's a lot of responsibility that you guys have. But in order for you to become better and to become skilled and to eventually, quote unquote, to become certified, you have to jump. You have to take that leap of faith. And you may not know whether you're going to go up or whether you're going to go down, but you'll never know unless you take that jump. So that's what this presentation has to relate on in regards to that topic. So this is it. You jumped. Yay! Everyone jumped. So now I want to discuss with you guys what you can expect once you finish your practicum and when you go out into the real world. So what's going to happen, I don't know if some of you guys are from out of state, but what I'm going to talk about now is for the state of Pennsylvania. I'm not sure if some of this goes over to other states that you guys may be from, but this is just the requirements for the state of Pennsylvania. You cannot work in the state of Pennsylvania unless you are a provisionally registered interpreter. How you become provisionally registered is you go through the office, ODHH.
Could you please repeat that?
Sure. The office that you go to is ODHH. And that's how you get your provisional registration, is through that office. Now, I know some people that I personally did this because I just get really anxious. But some people, the paperwork that you need to become a provisional registered interpreter, you can either mail it through the mail, or you can personally drive to Harrisburg, which is something that I did. The ODHH office is located in Harrisburg. Or you can drive over to the office and give them the paperwork personally. They say, quote unquote, that if you give it to them personally, they'll process it faster. I guess technically that's true because you don't have to wait, a day or two for it to be processed in the mail to then be shipped over to the office. So that's just a little something if you're really okay, I really want to start working, let's get this started. I know some of myself included and some of the other girls from my graduating class actually drove their paperwork over to the ODHH office. And as a provisionally registered interpreter, I just want to tell you guys is to be wise and to be safe, because as a provisional interpreter, there are assignments that you should not be taking, but there are assignments that agencies will contact you for. So I actually brought my provisional paper. If you guys want to see it later on, it gives you the breakdown of what you can and cannot do as an interpreter. So for example, what you cannot do is you cannot interpret in an emergency situation setting. So for example, if a client is in an emergency room, you cannot report to that assignment. Obviously, you cannot do anything legal, but you can't do anything legal anyway unless you're with AOPC. So you cannot work in emergency settings, and there's a couple other on that paper too that I want to show. But please know that just because you follow the law does not mean that the interpreting agency that you work for does. And you will be contacted for assignments that you should not be qualified for. Another criteria that you cannot do as a provisional is mental health interpreting. But I cannot tell you how many times I have been contacted for mental health assignments. And I literally say the exact same time every time they contact me. I say, I'm sorry, I cannot accept this assignment due to the regulations of the state of Pennsylvania as a provisional interpreter. And they say, thank you, Adriana, the next day. Can you do this mental health assignment that's and I'm like, are you serious? I literally told you this 97 times. I texted to you, I sent it to you via smoke signal. I probably sent dubs over so you guys can get it. I've emailed you guys. What don't you understand that I cannot do this? Not because I do not want to, but it is the law in the state of Pennsylvania that I cannot interpret in these settings. But they're still going to contact you anyway. So just be aware of that because it gets super annoying really fast. But just always know that just because you follow the law does not mean that the interpreting agency that you work for does. Also, if you take an assignment that you are not qualified for and you go to this assignment and you work for this assignment, and God forbid, let's say something happens, with the client. I personally thought, okay, well, the agency hired me, so that's on the agency. So if something were to happen, I'm going to say, no, this agency hired me, so they should have known better. No, that's not how it works because you are an independent contractor. which means that you as yourself should know what you are and are not qualified for. So let's say this agency contacts you and say, hey, I have this mental health assignment, and you say, yeah, sure. And then you go, you interpret the assignment, and let's say something happens. They are going to come after you personally. They're not going to come after the interpreting agency because you should have known better for what you are and are not qualified for, and you should have not taken that assignment. So that's something, that's a common misperception that people have, because I thought the same thing too. I'm like, well, if I get busted for anything, the interpreting agency hired me, so I'm just, that's their fault. I'm just going to throw it back on them. No, you can't. You have to be very, very cautious of what you do as a provisional interpreter. Yes, and like I said, agencies don't always follow the law, even if you do. Confidentiality, OMG, this is something that is like so crazy. And I'm going to give you a personal example. So the one day I was interpreting, I had 2 assignments on the same day. And so the first assignment that I had, it was like a doctor's appointment. And this deaf lady was telling me, oh, I have to go for this overnight study because there's something going on with my heart. But the doctor's office that I go through, they don't want to hire an interpreter overnight. But I need to have an interpreter overnight because if something happens, how are they going to communicate with me? Blah, 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 blah. And so I was telling the lady, I said, yeah, via the ADA law, that's prohibited. You really should report them to ODHH, all that stuff. So then I went to another assignment, and it was a different client, and she was telling me the same thing, how a lot of buildings and places don't want to hire interpreters. So I said, here's this crazy story. So I was interpreting for this client, and she was telling me how she needed an overnight study and how this building didn't want to hire an interpreter. And the client goes, oh, I know exactly who you're talking about. That's so-and-so. And I've told her so many times that she needs to report to ODHH because that's against the law. And I poop my skirt because I'm like, RID police are coming for me. I should have changed my major while I had the chance because I can't keep secrets to save my life. But I didn't even give the name. I literally was just like, oh yeah, I was interpreting for this client. And she knew exactly who I was talking about. And it just goes to show you how teeny tiny the deaf world and the deaf community are. So just be cautious, even though you might think, oh, I'm not really giving out that much information, you never know, you kind of are. So skill level 2. Also be aware, I only have 5 minutes, so I'm going to try to sum up everything that's last on this slide. So skill level. Also as a provisional interpreter too, there's also going to be times where agencies are going to contact you for assignments that you are not skilled for yet. That does not mean you were an awful interpreter, and that does not mean you should have changed your major while you were in Bloomsbury. That's not what it means at all. I'll give you an example. There was this one time I was sent on this assignment, and it was for this big company, and it was for a job training. And so I got there, and the speaker was just talking a million miles a minute, was throwing all this terminology that, of course, all the employees understood because they worked there. And I was just trying as hard as I can, but I knew in the back of my head that I was not providing an effective interpretation. So then at the end, I personally, now this is something that you might have to do too, that if you know you are not providing an effective interpretation, you must fix that. You must do whatever you can to provide that effective interpretation. So I went to the speaker, and we sat down, and I said, can you just give me what were the key points that these employees really need to know? And so they told me, so then I went back to this deaf client and I said, hey, in case you missed this information, this is the information that you should have known from this presentation. So then afterwards, I contacted my boss and I just let her know, hey, this job is it's really fast paced for me. I really can't keep up with it so much. So in case if they call again, I just want to let you know that I think you should hire another interpreter because it is really fast paced, so that way these deaf clients can have effective communication. So yeah, always be aware of your skill level too, and just know that it doesn't mean you suck as an interpreter. You're just being conscious and saying, hey, you know what? I know I'm not where I should be, so I don't want these deaf clients to be hindered in my interpretation. Okay, so then once you become a provisional, I'm just going to kind of summarize this up. You need 2 CEUs. CEUs is continued educational units, continued education units. You need 2 CEUs for the state of Pennsylvania to renew again. So one thing that's really cool, because workshops are like hella expensive when you get out into this field. The Patan office, there's a Patan office in King of Prussia. There's also a Patan office in Harrisburg. They do a lot of workshops for free, and they are awesome workshops. It's a lot of like video conferences. Sometimes they just bring presenters, and it's for free. The only thing you have to pay is a $5 processing fee to have your CEUs processed. So when you start working in the state of Pennsylvania, you're thinking, man, what can I do to make sure I have my CEUs? There's Patan. There's also a lot of online resources, that different websites where you can just sit in like on a webinar or an online class that can help you get your CEUs as well. Reputation and association. Please know that your reputation is so critical when it comes to this career. Not only your reputation, but Bloomsburg's reputation, because you are a graduate from here, is really contingent on your reputation as well. I know a girl from my graduating classes, she finished her practicum, and she went to go work for this interpreting agency. And so they said, oh, where are you from? And so the girl says, oh, I'm from Bloomsburg. And she said, oh, well, I don't know, because I've had a few Bloomsburg graduates, and I'm going to be honest, they weren't really that good, so I don't know if I'm going to hire you or not. So just always know that, just be cautious of your reputation, and know that your reputation not only affects you, but it may affect this school. It may affect people that are associated with you. So just always keep in mind your reputation as well. And the last thing I'm just going to say really quick, because I'm pretty sure I ran over the 5 minutes, because I always do. Stay in contact with each other. Oh my gosh, I can't tell you how important that is for you guys. Stay in contact not only for jobs. There's a lot of times where the classmates from my class and I will hear of a job and so-and-so, and I'll think, oh, you know what, this person lives there. Hey, you know what, let me contact this person and see if they'd be interested in taking this job. Some girls have contacted me, hey, Audi, there's some college classes at a college near you, so I didn't know if maybe you'd be interested in interpreting these classes. So it's very good, because since you guys work for different interpreting agencies, these different interpreting agencies service so many cities around you. So maybe they may ask you for a job. Hey, there's a job in Hershey, Pennsylvania, but let's say you live like 3 hours, but you're thinking, oh, okay, you know what, I remember so-and-so from my class lives in Hershey. Let me see if maybe they'd be interested in taking this assignment. So not only stay in contact for jobs, stay in contact and just support and encourage each other. This is something that when you're out in this field, not a lot of people will do. I'm going to give you a personal example. I have already had an interpreter talk to my boss about me and say, oh, Audi's not qualified. Oh, Audi shouldn't be working. I worked with his interpreter once. One time, I was very professional. I said, hey, nice to meet you. My name's so-and-so. We're going to team with each other. This person was so nice. Oh, okay, nice to meet you. Take care. Cool. 2 months later, I found out she goes to my boss saying that I should not be working out in the field and that I'm an unqualified interpreter. So you have to be cautious of who you talk to. You have to be cautious of the information that you relay with people, and just always know to just support and encourage each other. It's something that I want to tell you guys so much, because it's not done enough. It's really not. And this career is hard. Interpreting is hard. When I first started here, I'm like, oh, this is so cool, sign language, like throw your hands up in the air. But it's actually really, really hard. And it's just something that we should just always support and encourage each other. We're in the same career, we do the same jobs. Just support each other, encourage each other. Go to workshops together, or maybe say, hey, you know what? The 3 of us live in the Reading area. How about we get together, once a month or twice a month, and get together and we'll pop in videos and practice interpreting, and then you can tell me what I'm doing wrong or how I can improve, vice versa, and we'll work with each other on that. So I just always want to say, just support and encourage each other, because it's so important. And like I said, in this career, you're going to continue to learn as you continue out in your career as a sign language interpreter. I'm pretty sure I'm over time. Am I over time? All right. Anyone have any questions? False? No?
You guys can stop.